What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. I'm in a good mood today. Recently on stream I got a chance to mess around with full AP Malphite in a bunch of games, and unlike Renekton, Malphite is a champion that I actually have experience with, and going full AP is maybe a little bit cheesy, but it's actually not that bad, and oh man, was it a ton of fun. So first off, full AP Malphite brings to the table some massive burst damage and base scalings, but with the range on his ultimate, gives his burst combo an absolutely insane advantage. It's a bit comparable to maybe like an Annie mid, but with like 75% of the damage but twice the range. His Seismic Shard's also one of the only few basic abilities in the game to scale up with 50 damage per level, and his ult has a 1.0 AP ratio, so the damage is pretty good. And especially in the mid game and in the late game, if your opponents fail to pick up the right defensive options, the burst damage combo is totally ridiculous, and you can definitely start one-shotting people from full HP at a pretty crazy range. And there's so many moments every single game where someone just like walks around a corner, or maybe tries to land some harass on me, and I'm just like, oh, you're dead. And it's just crazy. I love it. And in lane, once you hit level 3, the Q harass as well becomes pretty real, and you can bully out your lane reasonably well, since a lot of mid laners actually rely on skill shots, but you have the targeted harass and your passive to help you win trades pretty well. So I expected to struggle a lot in lane versus poke heavy mages who could maybe harass me a lot with auto attacks. But I started to realize something when taking Malphite mid that you never really get when going top lane, and it's that everyone in mid lane starts Dorans, and since they are not going to be double jungling since they're mid lane, they always come into lane with a maximum of 2 HP potions. Meanwhile, I have a flask and 3 health pots, so it's actually really easy to just maybe take a bad trade or two to land a couple Qs, pop their health potions, and then just totally out-sustain them with the flask. Whereas in top lane, a lot of the top lane champions have great sustain, and on the other hand, mid laners have almost no sustain outside of their HP pots, and with that, the laning phase ended up being actually pretty damn strong and favorable against a lot of opponents, especially when you hit that sweet level 6. As for the downsides, the weaknesses and stuff, you can potentially have a little bit of trouble late game since he doesn't do that much versus tanks since he's burst oriented, and the full AP build gets countered like crazy hard by a Banshee's Veil, and he has a reasonably tough time versus some MR since he is so burst oriented. As well, in lane, if you do play against someone that has great sustain and reasonable poke, it can be pretty tough, but you can always just farm it up and survive with the help of your passive, with the help of teleport, so it's super easy to get out of lane, even in like the worst matchup. It's definitely a pick that should be played mid though, because in the top lane, the matchups are way harder, and you're going to get punished a lot more for not building tank. He also has really bad wave clear and really high mana costs, so I found myself getting pushed into turret just about every single game, and his kit isn't great for CSing under tower, so I had a bit of trouble getting pushed in non-stop. But again, getting pushed into the turret isn't exactly the worst. I mean, you're not really going to be killable, you won't really be gankable when that happens. You just lose a little bit of CS. But at the same time, no matter what happens in the game, no matter what happens in the lane, even if you fall behind, you're still Malphite, and a good Malphite ultimate in the late game is going to instantly win a fight and can create loads of picks because people just don't respect the range on the ability. So although he probably should fall off late game on paper with this full AP build, he really just doesn't. The pick potential is just so impactful 40 minutes into a game. And as for the build that I was playing with, I ended up using a build that I think was actually really good. Normally I'm a little bit skeptical about my builds and wouldn't really talk about them that much because I wouldn't be confident in them, but this time I think it actually worked out pretty well, and I am definitely confident that this is one of, if not the best builds for AP Malphite mid. So taking Flash and Teleport, I started Flask and 3 HP pots as mentioned earlier, and then I build Lucidity Boots with a Home Guard Rush, and then Morellos, or maybe Athenes if I'm behind, into that 40% CDR Rush. Then I just start Home Guard Teleport ganking all over the place every time I have ult. I'll go gank a lane, and it ends up playing out a lot like a Twisted Fate kind of, in that every single time I have my ultimate up, I just look for a gank, and the cooldown is so short with the 40% CDR, and the range on the ultimate is so ridiculous that honestly, like with these ganks, like you don't even have to try sometimes. Like I'll walk through a ward or I'll just walk straight into lane and you just ult them and it works like a majority of the time. It's really crazy. Worst case scenario, they flash the ultimate, but most of the time they don't, and it's a super easy kill. And I did mess around a lot with the builds. I tried a lot of different stuff. I tried Ludens, I tried Rabadons, I tried Ignite, I tried a lot of stuff focused on one-shotting my opponent, but I found that you really honestly just don't need the damage. And the burst combo is still going to be strong no matter what, and in lane you only really need to land 2 or 3 Qs to get your opponent low enough to get one-shotted by the full combo. And when ganking, you don't need the damage because your allies can help you with that, so you're going to be totally fine. But the 40% CDR, the home guards, makes ganking and controlling the map so easy, and your ultimate comes up so fast, and it lets you make so much more plays than any amount of damage could. And overall, the full AP Malphite build is honestly just so fun, and it actually works quite well because nobody ever really expects the burst damage, since it's a pick that nobody really plays, and people do a really poor job of countering it properly with their item builds and their playstyles, so it's something that I think is seriously a great pick for solo queue. I definitely recommend you try it out because again, it's the most fun I've had with League of Legends throughout all of Season 5.